Hi, this is Eric Maust of Rock City Fitness, and I'm going to explain the next strength training phase of my signature 6-month or 6-phase training program. The training phases are moving into the power phase, and I'm doing the first phase in power phase, and that's called power strength training, or PST. What characterizes power strength training is that I'm combining a traditional strength movement or an exercise that focuses on muscle strength, followed by an exercise that is focusing on muscle power. So I'm working on the fast twitch muscle fibers and kind of the explosive characteristics of the muscle. So just to kind of explain in context again and review where the power phase of training comes in with my overall program, I started actually about 5 months ago. I started with stabilization training. Okay, I had a couple phases or a couple months of training with that. So stabilization training, to my body, I was working on muscle endurance, I was working on balance, I was working on stabilization, and I was kind of building a foundation, okay, to prepare my body for higher intensity exercise. The second phase, or excuse me, the second kind of goal of training was strength training. So I had 2 phases in strength training. Okay, now I'm moving into that power phase. So that's the third phase. So just kind of imagine if I'm building a house, I'm starting with the foundation, that's my stabilization training. The second phase, the strength training, that's, think of that as framing a house. And then my final phase, the power training that I'm getting into right now, that's the finish work. So I built my foundation, I've gotten stronger, and now I'm ready to put more load on my body, and I'm ready to work harder, I'm ready to push myself harder, have higher intensity, and I can do that because of the work that I've done previously. So when I'm doing this power training right now, my body's ready to do it, and I can really get a lot out of the workout now because I'm ready to do it.
Go.
Okay, so the first part of the workout, just like it's been with all the other training programs I've done, is core training. So what I'm going to start with is an exercise that will build strength. It's really kind of a non-traditional type of core exercise. I know when we think of core or training abdominals, we think of sit-ups or crunches. What I'm going to do is actually use a kettlebell, and I'm going to do what's called a windmill. I'm going to do a variation of it. It's called a bent knee windmill. So it might not really look like a lot of core, but it is, because I really have to stay strong and stay tight in my torso to do this exercise properly. So I'm going to lift the weight up like this. My feet are wide. I'm going to bend my knee, and I'm going to reach down and touch the ground, and I'm going to keep that kettlebell in that same position. So I'm going to keep it balanced up over my shoulder. But there's definitely a lot going on in my torso here to be strong, to be able to brace myself to do this exercise. So I'm going to do this on each side. Same number of reps on each side. So I can do like 10, 15 reps on each side. Okay, the next exercise after the windmill exercise is I'm going to do a medicine ball exercise, and this is actually pretty typical or classic for a core or abdominal power exercise. So when you use the medicine ball, what's cool about it is we can generate a lot of force with the core muscles, and then we can release that energy. Okay, so it's actually something that's very explosive. So if I'm doing like a crunch or a sit-up, I gotta, for the most part, kind of do that under control. When I'm using a medicine ball, I can be aggressive with the movement, because then I'm releasing the weight, and so there's that energy is being released. But the point, if you're going to do this properly, once you understand how to do it, the point is to do it very explosively. So I'm making these torso muscles really whip, okay? So when I do this exercise, I don't want to, I'm not throwing it with my arms, okay? Obviously I'm holding the ball with my arms, but it's a whipping action starting with my torso, and my arms are just following what my torso is doing. So if I'm, especially on this type of exercise, I got to be accurate, okay? So that's part of it as well. This is something that pretty commonly can be done with a partner as well, and that, in some ways that might even be better, because I'm not having to worry about hitting the exact right spot. Okay, here we go. So once I get in the right position, I want to be real aggressive with it. Okay, so we have a couple of abdominal base exercises, or kind of anterior lateral core muscle based exercises. Next one we're going to do is focus on lower back and this is a good classic strength exercise for lower back. I'll be using a kettlebell again. What I'm going to do is a one-arm deadlift, and I'm going to do that with alternating arms. So when you do a deadlift, you got to make sure your back's in a good position, your back's straight, your back's tight. You're driving with your legs, but you cannot forget about your core. And so that's why this is actually considered a good core exercise, is because of really having to have that body awareness with your lower back. So I'm going to squat down, keep my chest up, my shoulders back, my stomach pulled in, my lower back straight. I'm going to pick up the weight, and I'm going to switch it. And I can actually kind of get into a rhythm where I'm going up and down and almost like driving up and almost like throwing that weight and then catching it with my other arm. Okay, so the exercise that follows the deadlift with the kettlebell, I'm going to use dumbbells. I'm going to do a clean. I'm going to be doing basically somewhere between like a power clean or a hang clean. But with dumbbells, actually, I feel like a lot easier to do than with a barbell. And it's going to be something that's more universal. More people can do it. I feel like then with a barbell, it's more versatile. Anyway, so once again, this isn't a core part of the workout, because I'm working on explosiveness, but the bottom line is I still have to have a good, strong lower back for this exercise. So when I was doing stabilization training, like like 5 months ago, I was, doing things like back extensions on a stability ball. So I was focusing on this movement. Okay. Well, now what I want to do is translate that where I'm not just working on so much like having good muscle endurance and like body control with my lower back. I want to translate that to more of a dynamic movement or more explosive movement. So during the clean, the dumbbell clean, believe it or not, it actually really involves the lower back a lot. So it's more dynamic. It's more like lifelike, where it's definitely considered a total body exercise in which my legs, lower back, my legs, my core, and my upper body are working together in the same movement. So the other thing about total body movements such as this is because you're working on that sequencing, there's a lot of coordination involved in the exercise. Okay, so beginning of a hang clean or the power clean is I'm going to start really almost like what I did with the deadlift. So I'm going to squat down with the weight. Okay, now from here I'm going to explode up, and as I kind of do a jumping motion almost, I'm going to be pulling this weight up and catching it at my shoulders, landing in a squat position. So it's like doing a front squat, then standing back up again. So might not really make that much sense. I'll just go ahead and show you in real time here how to do this. Okay, so deadlift basically start, and I'm exploding up, catching the weight, stand up, start over. Like this. Okay, so my next segment of the workout is reactive training. So remember, reactive training is my explosive plyometric type exercises. They're dynamic. So what I'm going to use is a hurdle. And so what I'm going to do is called what I call a hurdle lateral runner. Okay, so what this is going to be is really focusing on kind of footwork and fast reaction time in the lateral position or the frontal plane. Fast reaction time with my footwork. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Okay, next part of the workout is I'm doing pushing and pulling. So what I'm going to do is explosive chest exercise. I'm going to use a medicine ball. I'm going to use, it's a power push-up. There's different ways you can do this, but this is how I'm choosing to do it. So I'm gonna start out with my hands on a medicine ball, get in this position, so a regular push-up position, make sure your back's straight. I'm gonna drop down, okay, I'm gonna basically jump off the ball, drop down, and then explode back up on top of the ball. Okay, so it takes a lot of power and strength to do this properly. Okay, so the exercise after the power push-up is another explosive movement. This is more of a total body movement. So this is called a dumbbell push press. So what I'm going to do is start the weight at my shoulders just like this, and I'm going to squat and explode up into a shoulder press then. So I'm going to squat down, explode up, and push those weights up. So I'm not just muscling the weight up, I'm trying to carry the momentum from squatting and going up. Now when I explode, it should be quick and hard. Okay, next movement, we just had 2 pushing movements, so next movement is pulling. Traditional strength exercise, I'm going to do a cable row. I'm going to do it from this position, squatting, leaning forward. It's actually a real strong position, but it makes it so the exercise isn't just about pulling with my back muscles, but it makes it more of a total body movement where I have to have a good foundation with my legs. I have to be strong in my lower back. So back up the weight, and get down, keep my back straight, lean forward a little bit, and row just like this. Okay, so next exercise after my 2-arm row, bent over row, what I'm going to do is, it's kind of a unique way to do a row, but remember we're doing power exercises, and I'm trying to make it more dynamic and make the movement more of a total body movement. What I'm going to do is do what I call a 2-arm row with rotation. Okay, there's a lot going on with this exercise though. So I'm going to hold the cable with 2 arms. I changed the attachment so it's like a single handle versus the handle's made for 2 hands. Alright, so I'm going to get in a staggered stance like this, so kind of a position I would be in if I was doing a lunge. Okay, so from there, what I'm going to do is basically lunge and reach forward, bend forward, and let my arms kind of stretch forward. And what I'm going to do is then pull the weight back like this, and as I do that, I'm rotating my torso. So once again, I'm lunging, reaching forward, and then exploding, pulling back. So I'm going to show you this in real speed so you can get an idea of what I'm looking for in terms of the power. Okay, next exercise, or segment of exercises. I'm doing biceps, triceps, and then 2 leg exercises, a strength leg exercise and a power leg exercise. Okay, so I'm using a rope. Now this would not be traditionally thought of as a great tool for bicep training, but remember I'm doing power training right now, so I want to work on explosiveness, I want to work on power, I want to work on more dynamic movements. So instead of just muscling up dumbbells to do a curl, which I've been doing all along over the course of these training phases, and do something different. So what I'm going to do is grab the rope like this. I'm kind of holding it basically the same way if I had like a bar or dumbbells, I'm holding it in that same position to do like a bicep curl. But what I'm going to do then is kind of whip this rope around and try to mimic like a curling motion while I'm doing it. So I'm going to get in a good stable position, okay, squatting down a little bit. And then this is the motion I'm going to do, okay, so basically just like an alternating curl. But I'm going to get this going fast, and so I'm going to create some momentum with the rope. And that's kind of the challenge of the exercise. So this particular exercise, I'm going to do it for 30 seconds. So it gets tough to kind of maintain this for that time period, especially if you're doing it with a high intensity, which you should be doing it with a high intensity. Next exercise, triceps. Once again, I'm doing explosive movements. I'm going to use an elastic band. I'm going to get in a good athletic stance. Okay, so squat, lean forward a little bit. I'm going to pull my arms back at my side like this. From here, then, I'm going to do a fast tempo tricep press down or tricep extension. So the resistance isn't terrible heavy, but I'm making up for it with the speed of the movement. Okay, so what I'm doing next is a leg press. This is a great exercise for leg strength. It's not as dynamic as, let's say, doing a squat or a lunge. That would involve a lot more body control, but this is very good for just building strength because my back's fixed, my hips are fixed, my feet are fixed. I do have to pay attention to the alignment of my ankles and knees and hips, my leg alignment, but in terms of the stress of the exercise, if I'm doing it correctly, pretty low stress in my body, but I can push a lot of weight with it. So I'm going to get set up. So my feet should be hip width, straight up and down. I'm going to imagine, or I will, kind of drive through my ankle. Okay, that's what I want to think about. So I don't want to push through my toes or my heels. I want to drive right through my ankles. All right, so from this position, make sure your lower back stays against the pad. You don't want your back coming out. You don't want it excessively rounding. You don't want it to be arching off the back either. So I'm going to go ahead and push this. I want to watch out for locking my knees out. I don't want to do that. I want to keep my knees a little bit bent. Come back until the weight stack, just before the weight stack touches, then go back out. With this one, make sure you do your breathing properly. Inhale this way. Exhale when you push it out, when you exert yourself. Okay, last exercise. So I'm following up the strength movement for legs, the leg press, with an explosive lower body exercise, lower extremity exercise. I'm going to do box jumps. So what I'm going to do is, okay, so base movements, they're related to each other. In other words, like a leg press or a lunge or a squat, that's essentially what I'm doing when I do a box jump, okay? But now I'm just working with my body weight, and I'm doing it explosively. Or for that matter, the deadlifts that we did earlier, the cleans, same type of mechanics. So I'm going to go down like this. So does that look like a deadlift? Yep. But I'm going to go down like this, throw my arms back, and I'm going to explode up and jump up on top of that box. Now actually this box is not, I could go higher than this. But so let's say if I'm using a box that's not as challenging as what I could actually do. What I'm going to do is still jump up as high as I can, okay? So I'm still like exerting a max effort for this exercise. Because if I don't do that, then I'm not getting as much out of it as I want to. Okay, I really want to do max effort when I do these power exercises. Okay, so when I land, it's really important that I land in a good squat position. So I jump up and land. My legs are acting as shock absorbers, and then when I jump down, the same thing happens. The same rule applies. It's actually even more important because I'm jumping down from a greater height, so there's a lot of force there. A lot of force going through my knees and my lower back. So make sure I land with good mechanics. So just like that. So you want to, kind of a tip for doing box jumps is that you want to think about doing it softly and doing it quietly, so you don't want to make a lot of noise doing it. So that means you're really concentrating on landing then if you're being quiet. So really work on exploding up.